This is going to be a live presentation, and I understand that maybe it'll be put on YouTube later, but I just wanted to make sure everybody understands not all these photographs are mine. I've got some from Pinterest, some from the web, photography books and magazines, and therefore the resolution might not be exactly what you're expecting, but hopefully it'll work pretty well. I am not an expert at this. I've taken a lot of shots, panning, tried to take a lot of shots. I don't know if anybody else has ever tried it. Maybe this will pique your interest or at least give you some new ideas. Okay. Okay. So tonight we're going to talk specifically about panning. It's a type of photography that captures motion in a single frame of a photograph. There are basically 5 types of implied motion photography. Panning is one, zooming, twisting, slow shutter speed, and freezing action. So for this program on panning, we're going to assume a horizontal motion across the frame. I have several pictures at the end that will illustrate some of these other types of motion photography. So hang in there and we'll try to get through most of the types there are, okay? So what is the objective of panning? It's to move the camera in a horizontal motion, following the subject you want to be sharp and in focus, while rendering the background and foreground, if it's there, in an intentional blurring effect. Now you need to remember, these are all one exposure on one frame in-camera shots. No post-processing other than cropping, color corrections, and the minimum type of stuff. These are not combined frames, okay? Camera settings, what you need for a good panning shot. Your shutter speed is the kind of the critical thing. You'll see that in some of the pictures coming up. Fast object like a car, you need to try to start off around 1/25th of a second. People, maybe 1/8 of a second, or animals, you know, stuff in between 60th of a second. You can use all 3 of these, but the effects you'll get are different. Having the shutter open longer is the key to getting a lot of nice motion blur. And a neutral density filter may also be helpful. Probably best to shoot in shutter priority, and again, I'll show you the results there. That way you don't have to worry about the exposure, you know, the aperture, the ISO. Camera will take care of that for you. You should mount the camera on a tripod or a monopod, or if you're familiar with firmly holding it in a manner that will keep it really steady. What I like to do is tuck my elbows into my rib cage and hold it. And when I say follow the object, you should plant your feet about shoulder width apart and just turn at the waist. Don't move your feet, just rotate at your waist, okay? The camera's panning speed should match the speed of the object relative to you. And many successful photographers recommend using autofocus and continuous shooting mode. The autofocus is important because you're going to be, the subject's going to be changing its position relative to you. So you want to make sure your autofocus is on. And it definitely takes a lot of practice. Choosing your subject and location is important. You don't want to have anything else crossing in front of you while you're taking the picture. That will pretty much ruin it. What you do is you first start by pressing the shutter button halfway, at least on my camera, and I'm pretty sure most cameras, the new DSLRs, will do this. That will lock the focus and perform an auto exposure. You follow your subject, matching its speed, keeping it centered in your viewfinder or on the preview screen with the button half pressed. When you're ready, fully press the button and release it. And this is the important part. Keep following the subject until the shutter closes. That's the whole key to this thing, okay? Everybody with me so far?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Now here are three examples. We'll start on the left side. And this is why I say maybe shutter priority would be best, because now you can see, even though the shutter speed changed, the three exposures are very good because it knows how to adjust the picture for the changing shutter speed. So you see on the left, it was a 60th of a second, and that's the fastest shutter speed of these three pictures. And you'll notice the little reflector in the rear wheel. It's kind of a white streak near the bottom. As you go to the right, the center picture, that streak is a little longer, and that would tell you that, oh, he must have had the shutter open longer. So that was a 30th of a second. And on the right, you can see it's at the very bottom. It's kind of hard to see, but it's quite long. And that was the 15th of a second. So that's what I'm talking about. You can see the 15th of a second, you follow the subject, and the background is really blurred compared to the one on the right or the left. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to go into a few pictures that show these panning things with suggestions of what to consider. Feel free to comment, and if I don't hear you or see you, maybe we can go back at the end and go over a couple of questions if we have time. And I want you to look out for a common theme, that is, what is your subject? What is your point of interest? Or what is your focus point? Okay, so here's your first picture, an example. And I'll let you read along as I kind of paraphrase here. You can see it's a motorcycle. You don't know how fast he's going. He could be just cruising around. He could be really moving out. You don't know, but that's how you have to judge, and you have to take a lot of pictures. This person, I didn't take this one, might have taken 20 pictures to get this one. Who knows? But it's important to follow the subject and know your speed of the subject. And the longer you have the shutter open, the more blur you'll get on that nice background. Now here's another one of another vehicle. Yeah. And the lens choice, again, the lens choice is also important. You could shoot all of this with a 50 millimeter or a wide angle or a telephoto. Depends on what you want to do and what you want in the picture. This might have been a little closer than the other picture, or maybe they were just physically closer to the cars that went by. But the longer light streaks you see are what is an indication of a longer shutter speed. You can use this for many different types of photos. The shutter speed really emphasized the softness of the water on this shot. And the person may have been moving a little bit during the thing, but you can see the spray of the water nice and soft. So that would kind of indicate maybe a longer shutter speed also. Now this is a type of panning, and it's called motion within motion. What you're following when you're panning is the body of the horse or the rider, and you can see that the legs are not sharp. And that's because there was motion inside of the motion of your panning. It's kind of a hard concept to understand a little bit, but the feet are moving differently than the body. The body's hardly moving. So that's what you want to capture, but you can see the background really emphasizes the speed and your shutter speed that was used there. And like I said earlier, keep following your subject. While the shutter is open, make sure you're panning and keeping that object, whether it's a bike or a person or whatever, in the center of your frame. You don't want any up and down motion. You want to just move horizontally to follow their motion. And composition is always important, and it is in panning also. This is really tightly cropped. I would suggest, based on my experiences, that you'd really want to do your cropping in post production. Take as put a lot of room around your subject, and you can always zoom in later. But if you get it too tight, you're going to notice you're going to clip off a tail or a nose of a car or the animal's face or something, you know. So you want to give yourself plenty of room. This is a picture that I did happen to take. It's down in Myrtle Beach area. 60th of a second. You can see the letters on the boat are sharp. The star is sharp. The people are fairly sharp. They were bouncing around a little bit, but the buoy is in the foreground, the platform in the back. You can see there's a little bit of motion because the 60th is fairly fast. The boat was going pretty good speed. So this is a good example of shutter speed matching your subject. And you also want to keep it interesting. Tell a story, keep it simple. Obviously, this young child was having a great time on the slide, and someone panned around and followed him. The eyes and the face are pretty sharp. Her feet are not, but that's okay. And the background is not, because that's what you're trying to achieve, a blurred background to imply the speed in the motion. As again, keep it simple, tell a story, and do not try this at home. Now this one, I don't know how fast this train was going, but the light streaks are quite long. So it may have been going really fast. But what do you think? Do you think it would be possible to not have this as a panning shot? Do you think it could be somehow done post-production? I'm not sure. I'm pretty convinced it's panning, but
Yeah, I'm sure it can be done post-production, but you'd have to do some layers, right? And so you'd have to separate the subject from the background, and
right.
then on the background image, you would do like a linear blur,
Yep. Yep.
um, and that would give you the effect that you see there, and then crop in
Yeah.
just the train itself on the foreground. So you could do this in post-processing.
Yeah. I think you could, and some of these you probably could, but I think a lot of them are pretty good examples of panning. This one, I'm not sure. The train might have been going really fast. I don't know. Might have been a lot of practice.
Yeah, I'm not sure because the lines are so straight. Typically, when you're panning, don't you get a little bit of curvature as you're rotating around?
Yeah,
Or
it does happen, yes. It
yeah,
takes,
that would be the only reason I would suspect that maybe this was done with post-processing instead of panning. But I don't know, right? It could be a wider shot and they just cropped in on this. There's lots of ways to do this.
yeah, okay. Here's one here that, watch your background. That's really important. And I'm not convinced that this is a panning shot, to be honest with you, but I showed it to illustrate, that feature. You can have motion. The blurring in the background could be just depth of field problem or soft focus. So,
Mm-hmm.
and if we compare this to the next picture, I kind of feel this one is definitely panning because of the background.
Mm-hmm.
What does anybody else think? Is everybody still with me here? I hear Brian.
Bob says yes.
Yep,
Okay,
we're good.
okay. All right. So, like I said, shutter speed, your choice of lenses, your point of view, watching your background, are all important in panning. So now we'll go over quickly some of the other ones, other types of motion. This is what they call rigged panning. This is probably, and I think from what I read on the article that went along with it, when they're shooting a movie or something, they'll have a camera on the back of a pickup truck and they'll go ahead of the car, and that's how they get their shots. Well, I believe this is how this one was done. The car is nice and sharp. The background, the further you get away, it's blurry, but the foreground up top is really quite blurry. And that's because it was moving faster if the car and the rig motion were going faster. Is an interesting shot motion. The camera and the person in the photo were on the same merry-go-round platform. So obviously they're gonna, as long as you can hold the camera steady, you're gonna be nice and sharp. But with the merry-go-round turning, you get a motion effect.
And it makes me dizzy to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, this is the implied motion, long shutter speed. I took this again down on Myrtle Beach area, Market Common. That was a 15-second shot. Obviously things are moving, but you can't really see anything because of the length of the shot, and it was kind of dark, and the two cars you do see were parked, so they're there, but it's another form of motion photography. And then there's a thing called freeze action. It's my granddaughter Lily, about 7 years ago. But she, it's implied motion. Obviously, the ball's not going to be in midair for no reason. So it's another motion type of photography, peak of action. And again, freeze action, peak of action. Obviously, to get that much water, you would have a little bit of a longer shutter speed. Probably not as fast, but it's freezing the action, which gives you the implied motion. Another one of my shots, freezing action again. Remember we said, keep it simple, keep it interesting. There was one of those merry-go-round type hanging swings on the Myrtle Beach Parkway. So that's it for panning. I'm glad you were able to stick with me and watch it. Hope it was helpful. Maybe it'll help you rethink panning, or maybe give it even a try. I was going to suggest maybe if anybody was going to try panning and wanted to send me a couple of pictures, we can put together a little show of what you guys have tried, if you'd like to do that later in the season. No rush on it, but if you're interested, let me know.
Great idea.
Yeah. So I have a question, Wally.
Yep.
When do you tend to find yourself panning more frequently with your camera in the landscape or in the portrait orientation, or do you think about it ahead of time and adjust based on your subject?
I think it would depend on your subject. I have done most of mine in the horizontal format, landscape. And I did this show a couple years ago at another club down near Fredericksburg, and they asked me if you can do vertical panning. And I said, well, I suppose you could, but think about, what your subject would be. I guess you could do like a rocket launching or something like that, but most of your motion is horizontal on the land here, so depends, if you were shooting airplanes or something, but
Or like a platform diver, right? Olympics or competition platform diving.
yeah, yep, sure.
I know I think I tried to do some when I was at on a cruise, right? We went to like it's almost like a SeaWorld park where there were dolphins swimming around, and the dolphins, two of them together, launched a guy into the air, right? And trying to catch him as he's flying through the air. Could be another vertical panning, but you're right. There aren't too many common situations where that's going to be, as effective.
Yeah, yeah. Does anybody have any other questions? I don't know, can you see all the other slides on the side? Because
Yep.
I've finished the presentation. I can go back to any one if you had a question.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
So another question. So when you're panning,
Yep.
do you ever do like continuous shutter release, right? So follow the subject through and fire a burst of shots with the same settings to to maybe help, get a more interesting combination of foreground, background, et cetera? Or do you normally just try to fire once and then wait for the next thing to come along?
That's what I have done, but then again, I don't have a lot of experience. I actually took some race car at a dragway a while back. And, you get you can practice on the first two or three, and then by the ninth car, maybe you can get it down. And they come out pretty good, but I try to get everything in the one shot, in the one frame type of thing, because back when I took the drag strip, that was on slide film, so you really couldn't do that.
Yeah.
That was a while ago. Haven't done slides in a long time.
Yep.
I'm sure you could do some combinations to get something even more interesting, but I was kind of highlighting the panning issue here, this show. And this could lead to other shows by other people. If you've got a way to imply emotion and you think about, putting on a show, that would be good too.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really neat. Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome. I'm glad you enjoyed it all. And if you have any other questions anytime, you can send me an email or whatever, or I guess we're set.